So now is the best time ever to be a musician. Now that's a very bold statement. Doom and gloom, AI is going to take a lot of artists and creatives' jobs. Streaming services are not offering a fair deal for artists. There's so much new art and music all the time that it's very hard to stand out in that market. A lot of people think that it's probably the worst time ever to be a musician, but I just disagree. So I'm going to try and reframe this and bring some positivity to the idea of being an artist or a musician at the moment. And I'm going to look through various different lenses. I'm going to talk about my own experiences of those different areas of music. So there's a lot of doom and gloom around at the moment with regards to the arts, with regards to music. And a lot of these things are technology based. So AI is going to take a lot of artists and creatives' jobs because it can now generate art, it can generate music. The music distribution services, like streaming services, like Spotify and Apple Music, are not offering a fair deal for artists. So for the vast majority of musicians, it's hard to make any money out of those services. And because it's so easy to put your music online through those services, and a lot of generated AI content is going up onto those services as well, it's becoming completely oversaturated. There's so much new art and music all the time that it's very hard to stand out in that market. So that's another reason why people are worried about making a living as an artist or a musician. So overall, you get the impression that this is probably one of the worst times to be a musician. And I don't think it is. There's so many opportunities and there are so many ways of going about your work that I think this is actually one of the best times to be a musician or any kind of artist. So that's what we're going to dig into in this video. But before I start doing that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about AI, artificial intelligence. So there's quite a lot of worry about AI and how it might take a lot of jobs away from musicians because it can generate music now. You can give it prompts and it will generate artists, images for them, loads of music. And so that's what people are worried about. They're going to be replaced by AI artists. I've got to say, I'm a bit of a cynic with AI. I'm not really that convinced that it's going anywhere. I've tried to use it quite a bit in various different ways, not so much creatively. I'm not really interested in using AI directly to produce music at the moment because I just don't think it's very helpful in that way. I do use a lot of software and I do use a lot of generative software like granular synthesis and things like that. I love that kind of thing. So that verges on the kind of generative side of things. But even there, I'm not actually that bothered about generative music. I don't want something to make my music for me because that's boring. A big part of the appeal for me is actually making the music, not just having finished music, but actually making music and enjoying the process of that and enjoying actually playing, actually recording things. So the idea of generating it all with systems or with prompts just sounds a bit dull to me. And the results that I've seen so far have been pretty mid. AI at the moment seems to be able to emulate things, not even that well. And I've tried using it for writing as well, for, helping me with ideas for YouTube videos or helping me with proposals for work. And again, initially, it seems quite good. You think, oh, this is great. It's coming up with loads of ideas. But generally, I've found that it is very verbose. It likes the sound of its own voice, AI. And the ideas that it tends to come up with aren't very good and they're not very honed. So it's possibly useful for early drafts of work or for expanding an idea you already have out a bit, but generally I've not found it very useful. So I'm not convinced that this generation of generative AI is going to go anywhere really. In the same way as the previous predictive AI was also a huge thing. But when you think of the amount of money and the amount of investment in predictive AI, and then you go and use a music app and its recommendation page, like For You page, is just full of things you don't want to listen to. And they're never very good, are they? They're never very good. You know, it really ends up just giving you more of the same that you've already looked at. So that's not really that exciting. And generative AI is just a bit dull, really. They really need to start from the ground up and have another go. It may impact some jobs. It doesn't seem to be very good at anything, really. The AI doesn't have the innate qualities that are required to be a good musician or a good artist. And that is that you've lived the whole of your life and you're unique and you've had a huge set of experiences go into your brain, and it's that machine of your unique experiences that allows you to be the artist or the musician that you are. It's your unique perspective, and AI doesn't have a unique perspective. It has this kind of perspective of all the stuff that's been put on the internet. So that's my thoughts on that. So, number one, skills and knowledge. There are just so many resources available now for very reasonable amount of money, or free, for free. You can go on YouTube now and you can learn how to do anything. And that is an amazing thing, really. It's amazing. In the past, it would have been impossible almost to do these things, understand how equipment works, to do music production techniques. You'd have had to have gone to college and done a sound engineer course or something equivalent, or you could have possibly got some books on it. But now anyone can go to YouTube and you could just sit there and absorb all these skills from all sorts of people that can do them really well. You can learn pretty much anything, and you can get so many perspectives on it that you can learn it in quite a deep way. So if you want to learn about synthesis or you want to learn how to play the guitar, there's so much, and it's so easy now to get the resources you need to learn these skills. And it's the cheapest it's ever been as well to learn these new skills. So that's number one, skills and knowledge. Okay, number two, music equipment. So music equipment, there is so much music equipment available now, so many different types. And often this is seen as quite a negative thing, and it's given the name GAS, gear acquisition syndrome. You want everything, you want to try everything, and you can get yourself into a right old mess with buying too much stuff or wanting too much stuff, researching too much stuff, and it can end up hampering your productivity. You can argue that the proliferation of gear, software, hardware is bad for musicians, and if you let it, it is. But you could also argue that the options that are available now are amazing. Guitar pedals, looper pedals, samplers, software, VSTs, a lot of it free as well, or quite cheap. There's a huge range of possibilities, and you can get things that work for you. And particularly in software, there are a lot of low cost possibilities. And in the past, it wasn't like this. If you think back to the early days of electronic music, these things like samplers, synths, they're just prohibitively expensive for most people to get hold of, to even use at all. So for a long, long time, you only found good equipment in studios, and studios were very expensive. So hardly anyone could get their hands on synthesizers or mixing desks for many, many years. And then when they did start to become more consumer based, they were still horrendously expensive. When I first started buying equipment to make electronic music, it was very expensive and actually not that good. So my initial setups were an Atari ST running Notator and Creator. And I used to trigger a TG55 on those. And that was very hard to program, the TG55, and there were not a lot of possibilities with that. So I slowly expanded that out, and I ended up with a studio eventually that had a Yamaha A3000 sampler. And that was really expensive. Really, it cost me a lot of money, and it wasn't actually that good. It was really hard to program and use. But I did manage to do some music with it. Because that's all I had at the time. A PC that was running Cubase, and it could hardly do any audio work itself. You needed the outboard gear because the computer wasn't powerful enough to do audio. Like any computer now can do audio work, sampling work, but not then. So this is the mid to late 90s. And so when you look at what you've got now, it is definitely the best time for music equipment, hardware and software, the most powerful for the cheapest amount that's ever been possible. So number 3, releasing music. So in the past, if you wanted to release your music, you had to get the help of a record label. You couldn't release your own music really. You could make a demo tape, but the demo tape of your work would then have to go round all of the record labels, and you would have to hope that when they listened to your demo tape, they would put out your music. So back in the 90s, I was making my music and I tried that. I was using Cubase on a PC and I was making electronic music, and I wanted to be Aphex Twin. So here are my demo tapes from 1997, that one, 1998, that one. Mark Hadley, demonstration EP number 1, demonstration EP number 2. And so I'd made these little tapes and I sent them round to record labels. Got nothing back really, and it's like a dead end. You make your music and you send them to record labels, and then you're beholden upon somebody thinking, oh, this is worth investing a bit of time or money in. And if you don't get anything back, then you just have to keep going, and that's all you had really. Or you could go and do gigs. So I've actually got a couple of letters here that I got back from record labels at the time I sent these out. So Mantra Recordings, I can't really remember why I sent to Mantra Recordings. I think I was looking in magazines and finding record labels. I don't know whether labels were requesting demos. I think some of them might have been. Hello, Mark. Thank you for sending excerpts from your Cuckoo project. Yeah, Cuckoo. I called it Cuckoo. Cuckoo. Obviously, that name has now been taken. I enjoyed listening and would like to hear more of your work. I can't remember what happened after this, whether I did send some more and there was no response. But anyway, nothing came of Mantra Recordings. And I actually had a response from Virgin Records. a bit of tape there to protect the innocent. Dear Mark, thank you for sending in your material, which has been listened to most carefully. Unfortunately, I am afraid it's not really suitable for us. I wish you luck and thank you for contacting Virgin Records Limited. And this is from 1998. So that's what you get. You make your tapes, you sent them off, you sent them to wherever you could find labels. Occasionally you got a letter back, but it was very, very unlikely you were going to get a record deal. So that was the end of the line then. What else could you do, really? You could self-release tapes like this, and you could, if you gigged a lot, you could take them around and sell them at your gigs. You could possibly get them in, I mean, I made these quite nice, look, with labels. You could possibly get a local record store or something to sell them for you. But there was not many opportunities for getting your music, for releasing music and getting it out. You were totally beholden on the label system, and that was incredibly hard to get into. So after my demo tape, I carried on making work and, still wanted to be Aphex Twin. And so a couple of years later, the internet was starting to expand out and services were starting to appear on there, like mp3.com. So I got quite into that, kind of like an early version of SoundCloud. And through uploading there and starting up conversations with people, I actually did manage to get a release out, a physical release. And it was this 4-track EP, vinyl EP, headshell EP. This came out in 1999, and it came about because the guy that ran the label, Toshok Labs, a little independent label from New York, he heard my music on mp3.com. He liked it, got in touch, said he'd put out an EP for me. So that's the way that my only vinyl release ever happened, was when the internet started to get better. And now, of course, you can release your own music and find an audience with that. You would get a small audience on mp3.com and those types of services, but I don't think there was any way of really monetizing that at the time, of selling your music. I can't remember. But now, obviously, there are all sorts of services where you don't need to release physical music anymore. You can just release it digitally, and that's very easy to do. You finish your music, you upload it to these sites, these services, and then all you've got to do then is bring an audience. But you can release the music and you can put it in front of people. And that is an amazing thing, I think. You can obviously go a step further and you can have a CD made. This is a CD I was on from White Lab Rex label. You can have a CD made for fairly reasonable amounts of money these days. A CD or a cassette or even vinyl. If you want to invest a bit in your product, you can make your products completely yourself. And if you can bring an audience to that, then you can just release your own music. You don't need labels. You don't need to make demos and send them out to people. You can just do it all yourself. And the other thing I would say about releasing music is that in the past, you were quite limited to the formats that you could release on. So, people would tend to release albums and singles. And that was all there was, really. So you got cassettes, vinyl, and then CDs, a 12-inch single or a 7-inch single. And obviously a few little other formats, 10 inches. Picture discs, but really not a lot more than that. You had to conform really to those types of releases, and now you don't. you can do whatever you like. So you don't have to release in as singles, as albums. You can release one track a day for the whole year if you want. Or you can release 100 tracks in a single collection that just would be not possible previously. So releasing music is easier and cheaper than it's ever been before. So, number 4, finding your audience. So, how would you have found your audience in the past? Again, this would have all been tied into labels, promotion, and it would have been very expensive. So, you know, your label would have paid a lot of money to have got your releases in front of an audience in magazines. Very hard and very expensive to find an audience for music. And if you're an independent artist who was making things and self-releasing them, almost impossible to find much of an audience. You'd build it slowly, maybe through gigs. Really hard work until the internet got better and better. And now you upload your music and it's really up to you what you do to bring in that audience. You can do all sorts of things. You can obviously still spend money advertising. You can advertise in online digital publications if you want, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend any money. You can just put your music online and then you've got to do some marketing and promotion around it yourself. You can build a YouTube channel to talk about your music and what you're doing. You can have a blog, you can have a journal. You can try all sorts of ways to bring and find an audience. And while that is still hard, it is less hard than it was in the past. And also, one of the advantages of the internet and places like YouTube and Bandcamp and all of these services is that it's easier for people to find niches, particular niches in music. If you're into extreme noise bands, say, in the past, if you went to HMV, they might not have any. And so you might have to go to specialist shops. You might even have to travel. You might never find those things, or you might have to buy them mail order or something. But now you can go online and through these huge systems where so many people can come online, your audience can find you. So even if you are far more niche in the type of music that you produce, you can find that small audience that can support you in the work that you do, even if it's quite avant-garde. So finding your audience is still hard, always been hard, but not as hard now as it used to be. So the last one, number 5, is making money. It's always been incredibly hard to make a living as a musician or an artist. You know, I went to art college, and when I left art college, I failed to become an artist. But I did go into adjacent things. I used my skills to have a career in design and then software. To make money in the past as a musician, you would really need to be on, you know, picked up by a label and then successful. And the label is good. The label brings in an audience. You sell your records, then you can go on tour, you get known, you build an audience. Very, very hard to do. And hardly anyone who starts out wanting to be a musician would have become a musician. And so there's thousands of ways of monetizing your music now that are much more complex than just selling music, just selling physical products. You can sell physical products, you can sell digital music, you can have subscriptions. So people can subscribe to your services on Bandcamp or Patreon, and then you can give them all sorts of things under that subscription. So for a few pounds a month, you could get, for instance, coupons for money off music. music early, exclusive music, and then products around your music. So PDF guides or a YouTube channel where you talk about how you make your music. There's all sorts of ways of going about selling your music and products around your music. And you don't need a label to do that. You don't need to have a hit that's in the charts to sell products. You don't need to advertise in magazines, none of those things. You can do it all yourself with a huge amount of variety and different ways of going about it online. So making money from your music, I'd say, it's hard, very hard, like it's always been. Options are so broad now, and there's so many different things you can do that a lot more people can come up with combinations of things that will work for them. So ultimately, now is probably the best time for making money from your music. So it's easier and cheaper to learn and get the skills that you need to be a musician. The range of music hardware and software is wider and more interesting and more affordable than it's ever been. Releasing music is easier than it's ever been. You can do it all yourself. You can release whatever you want in any way that you want. There are more possibilities for finding an audience now, particularly a niche audience, because there's so many people that are using online services. And there are many, many more ways of making money from your music and products around your music. So overall, through these different lenses, it is definitely the best time ever to be a musician. So that's it for this one. I hope it was helpful. If you like what I do here and you want to support the channel, you can in all the usual ways. I've got a lot of these things going on. You can sign up to my Patreon where you get these videos early and ad-free, and you'll get coupons for money off my music. You can go and sign up to my Substack journal, Studio Journal. It's a newsletter, so you can always find out what I'm doing on there. And you can go to my Bandcamp where you can listen to and buy my music and my pivot cards, my creative cards for musicians. So you can do any of those things to support the channel, and all of that helps me to keep going and keep making more videos. And obviously you can like and subscribe down below because that will tell YouTube that you've enjoyed watching the video. And if you agree or you don't agree with what I'm saying here, then please do comment. I try to respond to all the comments, and I am truly interested in what you all think of these things that I'm talking about. You know, am I talking a load of rubbish? Or do people agree with me? I'm interested in what you think. So that's it for this one. Hope that helps you to feel a bit more positive about your music making. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Thanks. Bye.